Welcome back to Balanced Nomad. Today I'm going to be talking about how I'm preparing for Japanese language school, as well as advice for fellow beginners learning Japanese, along with my favorite resources that help make studying a lot easier. So I started learning Japanese just over a year ago, but ended up taking maybe 5 months off last year. I was doing complete self-study, and with a language like Japanese, it's very, very easy to get overwhelmed. So I got overwhelmed and I ended up not looking at a single thing for about 5 months, up until 4 months ago when I got back to my studies and have stayed pretty consistent since then. So I'm leaving to Japan in a few months. I'm so excited. And my goal when headed to language school, I want to be at an N5 level, which I think I'm on the right track to be finished by then. I had around 6 months to do this, and I know a lot of people can progress a lot faster in 6 months, but I just set myself a more realistic goal as someone who also works full-time and is just busy with other things. Japanese is my priority right now, but I didn't want to overwork myself and eventually burn out before I even go to school. So I decided I wanted to be at N5 before arriving. And just a little disclaimer, I'm obviously not an expert on studying or teaching Japanese. I'm also just another beginner learner. So I wanted to share what I've learned so far and how I've actually managed to make realistic progress in the past couple months. One of the most important things with me becoming consistent with learning is giving myself realistic tasks and goals instead of overloading myself, not getting everything done, and just feeling bad about it. My minimum time frame is to study for 30 minutes a day, and every time I sit down to study, I usually end up doing an hour instead of the 30 minutes because once I'm in it, I'm motivated to start. Whereas before, I would tell myself I have to have a 2 or 3 hour cram session, not want to start it obviously, and just not do anything and feel bad that I got no progress done. For me, it's all about gentle structure and making sure that I'm getting what I need to done, but not overwhelming myself and putting too much on my plate that just isn't achievable or realistic for me. Having a time frame as well as just some bare minimum activities to do every day, which could be looking at a flashcard deck or watching a 30-minute listening video, kind of matching my energy level with where I'm at for that day, as well as trying to incorporate input in my day wherever I can, whether that's listening to a podcast, watching a short video on YouTube, or even just reading a quick story, trying to get something in instead of forcing myself to do an hour, but putting in little bits of work throughout the day helps me feel like I'm actually making progress without overloading myself. For my study, I now don't just rely on self-study, but I actually have a tutor through Preply. This is not sponsored or anything, I wish it was, but no, I just love Preply and I love my tutor. She has helped me progress so much and definitely helped me stay consistent. I work with my tutor 1 to 3 times a week. It really just depends on my work schedule, but in an ideal week, I'd have maybe 2 lessons. I've learned that works for me a little bit better than 3, which can get overwhelming. Trying to go back to studying, especially as an adult who has graduated school 6 years ago, it can be a challenge. So having somebody actually walk me through it and help me along the way has been really key for my progress. Another thing that has helped my study routine be way more consistent is just finding a time that works for me instead of just saying, oh, I'm gonna study at some point in the day, knowing at noon I study, at 8 a.m. I study. Having it set out for you will make it so much easier because it's just less that you need to think about because you know that time is dedicated to your studies. If you read the book Atomic Habits, you know doing things at the same time every day just reduces that friction it takes to start a habit. My tutor and I work with the Mina no Nihongo textbook, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been really nice to have someone actually explain things to me, as reading a textbook isn't always great. So making progress with this book, knowing I'm gonna be doing around 2 to 3 chapters every single week is perfect for me. Every single chapter also comes with its own set of vocabulary. So knowing what I need to know to understand the lesson helps me know which areas of vocab I should focus on. The other way I learn vocab is by using Anki. If you have been anywhere on YouTube researching how to study Japanese, I'm sure you've heard of Anki. It is a spaced repetition vocabulary deck. So it'll come at intervals, and the more you know a word, the less often it's gonna pop up. There are literally thousands of Anki decks out there. I will link the one that I use down below. It's called the Kaishi 1.5. It's really good. I think it's a nice way to get some kanji practice as well. I really like this deck. I find there's some good overlap with things I'm learning in my textbook, so there's a lot of beginner words. It's not like you're learning something super random you're never gonna come across, so I think it's a great deck for beginners. Every day I try to average around 5 to 10 new words. If I have too many that are piled up and I know it will take me a long time, I'll just set it to 0 so that I don't have to learn any new ones for that day. This is a great way to just kind of meet me where I'm at instead of forcing myself to learn new words, and eventually it's just all gonna be mixed in my brain and I'm not gonna learn anything. So I will set it to 0 some days if my brain is not Japanese brain. I also use Quizlet for vocab. This is through my tutor, but there's so many free Quizlets out there. I use the word list for Mina no Nihongo textbook. Every single chapter has a word list, so the Quizlets just correspond with that. Just makes it a lot easier when I actually know what my tutor is saying. Obviously, I've mentioned I learned grammar through my tutor. I also really love the YouTube channel Nihongo. I'll also link it down below. They explain everything very thoroughly from the Mina no Nihongo textbook. So it's really great for me to study before and after my lessons. I mainly just do grammar through my tutor because I can't do self-study. I will not retain any of the knowledge, but I do highly recommend those YouTube videos, especially if you're working with the Mina no Nihongo textbook. So working with a tutor and having private lessons has definitely skyrocketed my growth, has helped me also work more on speaking. It can be so nerve-wracking. I still am so nervous to speak in Japanese, so having a safe space to practice speaking, listening, grammar is really incredible, and I highly recommend it. There's a big price range difference on Preply. My classes are on the more expensive side. They are $30 USD per class, which is not cheap, but I definitely think it's worth the money if you have the money available to spend. If you are a highly motivated person who is reliable to do self-study, I am not one of those people, so I need a tutor, but you definitely could do self-study without a tutor, but I do highly recommend it, especially if you are going to Japan to study, because having someone to practice speaking to is probably the best part of it. And just some of the resources I use, I will link everything I talk about down below. Obviously, I've said it a million times, the Mina no Nihongo textbook. I really love this one. It's actually the textbook they use at the school I'm going to. So if you're also signed up for language school, I'd highly recommend looking into the actual textbook they use at your school, because it can be really helpful if you kind of know what to focus on before getting there. I do also have the corresponding workbook for the Mina no Nihongo textbook. I have not started this. This was a recent gift I got, and I'm yet to start it, but it does look really good. I think practicing handwriting is very important. So I'm excited to have this, and it also has a lot of kanji in it with the furigana. So definitely going to start this one soon. For kanji, I used to use wani kani. I actually really loved it, but it is paid after a certain while, and I just kind of stopped. I do think it's a really great way to learn kanji, but I'm not currently using it right now. I've also purchased this kanji workbook. I have only done up to the number 4, so I've not done very much of it. I do know a lot of basic kanji, not necessarily their readings, but I do recognize them but I'm definitely going to work my way through this before I leave. And lastly, just my favorite things for listening. I just do all of my listening on YouTube mainly. I love Comprehensible Japanese. They also have a website that's really good and it's also free. You can pay, I think it's like $5 a month to have access to more videos, but I just use their YouTube channel. It's super great. If you are like beginner, and listening is very hard for you, they have quite easy, beginner-friendly videos. I started listening with these and I think they're great. I love these videos. The other channel I love is called Waku Waku Japanese. They post short dramas and they kind of say some are beginner and some are N4, N3. They have Japanese short dramas. They play it twice throughout the video. The first half, it's slowed down with hiragana, romanji, as well as English subtitles. And the second half is in native speed with no subtitles. They're actually so entertaining. They're not just really boring circumstances. Like, they're good, they're funny, they are great. I really highly recommend them. And another channel I love is called Nihongo Learning. I also really enjoy his videos. They have super easy to comprehend beginner videos, so those are also great. Some have subtitles. I try to do no subtitles when I'm watching, or else I'm just reading the entire time, and I really want to work on my listening skills. So those are the 3 channels I really use the most for my listening and input. But really, YouTube is just like a treasure trove for anything you could find. So there are so many channels, especially for Japanese, which is incredible. And before I go, just quickly talking about my mindset before I go to school. I am obviously an adult. Going back to school is very exciting, but also very scary. But trying to use studying and preparing to help ground myself before I go and start a new chapter in my life. I think regardless of what you're doing in your life, but especially when it comes to language learning, letting go of perfection, because you are gonna be bad when you start. I'm sorry to say, I'm so sorry, but you're gonna be bad. But being bad is also the first step to being good at something. Trying to be okay with the discomfort when I feel stupid, that I can't think of that word or I can't think of how to say the sentence. Just trying to accept that that's okay and that's how it's gonna be for a while, especially when learning arguably one of the hardest language to learn as a native English speaker. But it's okay. Trying to learn the language so I can participate in the culture and speak to locals, I think is huge. So I'm very excited to see where this language journey takes me. If you are also learning Japanese or another language, thank you so much for watching. I hope you stick along for my journey. I'm going to Japan in a few short months. I am so excited and I will definitely take you all with me. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you soon.